Have you ever wondered why some people seem to move through life as if they've discovered a hidden shortcut through reality itself? While you're working tirelessly toward your goals, pouring energy into vision boards and morning affirmations, there's someone else who appears to bend time around their desires, manifesting in weeks what should logically take years. It's almost infuriating, isn't it? They don't seem to work harder than you. They're not more talented or better connected. Yet, somehow opportunities flow to them like a river, finding its natural course, while you feel stuck, pushing against an invisible current. What if I told you this phenomenon has nothing to do with luck, privilege, or some cosmic lottery? What you're witnessing is the direct result of a specific mental frequency that most people never learn to access. Not because it's hidden from them, but because they've been conditioned to look in entirely the wrong direction. You see, we've been taught that manifestation is about doing. Repeat these words, visualize harder, feel more positive, plaster your walls with images of success. And while millions of people are exhausting themselves with these surface techniques, they remain trapped in the same slow, grinding experience of linear time, where results feel agonizingly distant. Has this ever happened to you? You follow every step the experts recommend, you do the morning routine, you journal your gratitude, you affirm your abundance. Yet when you look at your actual life, when you examine the tangible results, reality seems completely indifferent to your efforts. The disconnect between what you're doing and what you're experiencing creates a quiet desperation that nobody talks about openly. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. Now here's what most people fundamentally misunderstand about how reality actually works. There exists a mental frequency that operates beneath the surface of conscious awareness, a frequency that doesn't just attract things to you, but literally collapses the distance between your current state and your desired outcome. This isn't metaphorical language. This is about tapping into a field of intelligence that one of psychology's most brilliant minds, Carl Jung, spent his lifetime studying, a unified consciousness that exists beyond your individual mind, filled with patterns and potentials that actively shape how events unfold in the material world. Stay with me here, because what you're about to discover might surprise you. When you learn to align with this deeper field, something extraordinary begins to happen. Synchronicities stop being rare coincidences and become your new normal. The right information finds you at the perfect moment. People appear in your life precisely when you need them. Obstacles that seemed immovable simply dissolve without force. And time itself seems to reorganize around your intentions. This is the mental frequency that reshapes reality, and understanding how to access it changes everything about. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because there's a hidden truth here that completely transforms how you approach your own evolution. A psychiatrist named David Hawkins dedicated decades to mapping what he called the levels of consciousness, and what he discovered was revolutionary. Your emotions aren't just random feelings passing through you like weather patterns. They're precise instruments showing you exactly where your frequency is vibrating at any given moment. Think of them as a dashboard in a car, giving you real-time data about your internal state. At the bottom of this scale, you find the densest frequencies: shame, guilt, apathy, grief. When someone operates at these levels, it's not just that they feel bad. Their entire perception of reality becomes filtered through this density. They literally cannot see the opportunities, the solutions, or the possibilities that exist right in front of them. It's as if they're wearing glasses that only show evidence of limitation and struggle, and no amount of positive thinking can override this perceptual filter, because the problem isn't in their thoughts, it's in their fundamental frequency. But here's where the real transformation becomes possible. Hawkins identified courage as the critical threshold, the exact turning point where everything shifts. Below courage, you're essentially in survival mode, reacting, defending, protecting yourself from a world that feels threatening. Above courage, something remarkable happens. You begin creating, influencing, consciously shaping your experience rather than being shaped by circumstances. This isn't about feeling brave all the time. It's about reaching a frequency where you're no longer controlled by external conditions. If you're not already subscribed, consider joining us. Every video here is designed to give you real insights that shift how you experience reality, not just theory, but tools you can actually use. And this brings us to something that might shock you, probably the most liberating revelation you'll hear today. The entire good vibes only movement that's become so popular in personal development circles is actually keeping people trapped in lower frequencies while convincing them they're spiritually evolved. Think about it carefully. When you adopt the belief that you must feel positive all the time to maintain high vibration, you've just created an impossible standard. And what happens when you inevitably feel sadness, anger, or fear? You add another layer on top of the original emotion: guilt for feeling it, shame for not being positive enough, frustration with yourself for failing at something that should apparently be simple. That resistance, that internal war you wage against your own human experience, is what actually collapses your frequency, not the original emotion itself. Your true vibrational state isn't determined by what emotions you're feeling in any given moment. It's shaped by something far deeper, the invisible architecture of beliefs, convictions, expectations, and identity that you've been carrying around, often without even realizing it's there, operating behind the scenes. Of your conscious awareness, like hidden code, determining what reality you experience. Write in the comments, "I see the pattern," if this is starting to click for you and you're recognizing how this understanding shifts everything about the journey you've been on. So if it's not about forcing positive emotions, what is the actual pathway to accessing this mental frequency that reshapes reality? Here's where we get into something that requires complete honesty with yourself, the kind of radical honesty that most people avoid because it's uncomfortable to face. The non-negotiable first step in any real transformation is identifying exactly where you are right now. Not where you tell yourself you are, not where you wish you were, or where you present yourself to be on social media, but where you actually are in this precise moment beneath all the stories and justifications. This identification goes far beyond simply noticing whether you feel happy or sad today. What we're talking about is recognizing the invisible patterns, the automatic responses, the deeply embedded structures of perception that have been running your life behind the scenes like software you never consciously installed. Every single reaction you have to a challenge reveals something crucial about your current frequency. When something goes wrong, what's your immediate response? Do you look for who's to blame, or do you ask what this situation is trying to teach you? When an unexpected opportunity appears in your life, do you feel worthy of receiving it, or does some voice inside whisper that it's too good to be true, that somehow you don't deserve it? These aren't just random personality traits or quirks. They're precise indicators broadcasting the exact frequency at which your consciousness is currently vibrating. Your beliefs about your own capabilities, your expectations about how life works, your convictions about what's possible for someone like you. These invisible structures are creating your reality far more powerfully than any affirmation you could ever repeat. And until you become aware of them, until you shine light on these hidden patterns, you're essentially trying to change your life while keeping the same internal blueprint that created your current circumstances. But here's something that might surprise you about this whole journey of transformation. The universe doesn't operate on a static frequency of permanent happiness. Everything in existence moves in cycles, in rhythms. The seasons change, the tides rise and fall, day becomes night and night becomes day. This is fundamental to how reality works. Trying to stay fixed at one extreme of constant positivity creates enormous internal tension. It's like trying to hold your breath forever or forcing the ocean to stop moving. True high vibration, the kind that actually reshapes your reality and collapses time, isn't about denying half of the human experience. It's about developing a consciousness that can hold space for all emotions without being dominated by them, without losing your center, without forgetting who you really are beneath the temporary weather patterns of feeling. When you can witness anger arising and say, "There is anger present," instead of "I am angry," you've just made a quantum leap in consciousness. That witnessing awareness, that observer perspective, operates at a naturally higher frequency than any emotion, whether positive or negative. Drop a comment saying, "I am the observer." If you're beginning to understand how this shift in perspective transforms your entire relationship with your own experience and the reality you're creating. Now let me show you something that bridges the gap between everything we've been discussing and what's actually happening in your brain, your body, and the field of energy around you when this shift occurs. Because here's what's truly extraordinary. This isn't just philosophy or spiritual theory. Modern science is now confirming what ancient wisdom traditions have been teaching for thousands of years, and when you understand both perspectives together, you gain access to a kind of knowledge that becomes transformative power. Quantum physics has completely shattered the old materialist view of reality. What scientists have discovered is that the solid, fixed world we think we're living in is actually mostly empty space and vibrating energy. The chair you're sitting on, the device you're watching this on, even your own body. At the quantum level, these aren't solid objects at all. They're patterns of energy and information dancing in constant motion. And here's the part that changes everything about how you approach this mental frequency we've been exploring. We're only perceiving about 5% of what actually exists. Our senses can only detect a tiny slice of the electromagnetic spectrum, which means there are entire dimensions of reality operating all around us right now that we simply cannot see with our ordinary perception. This isn't speculation or wishful thinking. This is established scientific fact. And what it means is that when you expand your consciousness, when you access that observer awareness we've been talking about, you're not just changing how you feel about reality. You're literally gaining access to layers of reality that were previously invisible to you. You're tuning into frequencies that have always been broadcasting, but that you couldn't detect from your previous state of awareness. But it goes even deeper than that. Neuroscience has revealed something absolutely revolutionary about the relationship between consciousness and biology. Your thoughts and emotions aren't just abstract experiences floating through your mind. They're actively reprogramming your brain structure in real time, creating new neural pathways, strengthening certain connections while weakening others, and even influencing genetic expression through the field of epigenetics. Every single time you make a conscious decision to observe your patterns instead of being swept away by them, you're literally rewiring the physical hardware of your brain. This is the hidden mechanism behind genuine transformation, and it's happening at the intersection where scientific understanding meets spiritual practice. When you choose awareness over reaction, when you witness emotions rather than identifying with them, you're not just performing some abstract mental exercise, you're creating measurable biological changes in your nervous system. You're building new circuitry that makes it progressively easier to access higher frequencies, and you're dismantling old patterns that kept you locked in lower states. This is why consistent practice matters so much. Each conscious choice is like laying down a new track, and eventually these new pathways become your default mode of operating. Leave a comment with "Science meets Spirit" if you're recognizing how this understanding validates your own experiences and shows you that transformation is not only possible, but inevitable when you work with these principles. But there's something even more profound that happens when you truly embrace this understanding. You begin to realize that everything you've been calling I is not actually who you are. The ego, that constructed sense of self, made up of your history, your wounds, your beliefs, your fears, your need to be right or look good or stay safe. This is not your enemy, but it is a severely limited version of what you actually are. And here's where a simple question can change everything about how you experience reality. When you feel angry, who is it that's angry? When you notice a thought passing through your mind, who is the one noticing? There's the anger, and then there's the awareness of the anger. There's the thought, and then there's the consciousness observing the thought. Which one is really you? This isn't just philosophical wordplay. This distinction is the doorway to accessing that mental frequency that reshapes reality. Because when you start asking these kinds of questions with genuine curiosity, something fascinating happens. You begin to access observer consciousness, that witnessing awareness that exists at a naturally higher frequency than any mental or emotional content. And from that elevated perspective, dense energies that used to grip you for hours or days begin to dissolve almost immediately. You're no longer trapped in the drama of the ego story. You're the space in which all stories arise and fall away. But this understanding isn't just theoretical. It becomes your greatest tool when life throws you into those inevitable storms of dense emotion. Because let's be honest, no matter how expanded your consciousness becomes, you're still going to feel fear sometimes, anger sometimes, deep sadness sometimes. That's not failure, that's being human. The real test of accessing this frequency isn't whether you can maintain peace when everything is going smoothly. Anyone can do that. The true revelation of how far you've come shows up in those moments when the storm hits, when the emotion feels overwhelming, and yet somehow you manage to remain anchored in that witnessing awareness. Here's where the practical impact of everything we've discussed becomes crystal clear. When a dense emotion arises, let's say it's anxiety about a decision you need to make, you have a choice in how you relate to it. The old pattern, the unconscious pattern, is immediate identification. I am anxious. This anxiety is who I am right now. I need to get rid of this feeling as quickly as possible because it's unbearable. And in that identification, you've just collapsed your consciousness down to the level of the emotion itself, which means you're now vibrating at the frequency of anxiety. But there's another way, a path that requires practice but becomes more natural every time you choose it. You notice the anxiety arising, and instead of collapsing into it, you create a tiny bit of space. You say internally, "There is anxiety present in my experience right now." Do you feel the difference in those words? You haven't denied the emotion or pretended it isn't there, but you also haven't confused it with your identity. And then comes the crucial step. You welcome it without judgment and ask, "What are you here to show me?" This simple question shifts the entire energetic dynamic. You're no longer at war with yourself, which means you're not wasting energy on internal resistance. And here's a practice that changes everything in these moments: conscious breathing. Your breath is the bridge between your body and your consciousness. When you breathe deeply and deliberately while feeling a dense emotion, you're literally giving that trapped energy permission to move through you instead of staying stuck. Write, "I choose awareness," in the comments if you're recognizing that this entire journey is about making conscious decisions in each moment, rather than waiting for some future breakthrough to save you. So here we are, and if you've made it this far, I want you to know that says something important about you. Most people would have clicked away after the first minute, looking for a quick fix or an easy answer. But you stayed because you recognized that real transformation requires depth, understanding, and a willingness to look at things from angles you may never have considered before. That matters. If this resonated with you, if something shifted in how you understand consciousness and the hidden mechanisms behind reshaping reality, I'd genuinely appreciate it if you hit that like button. Not because I need the validation, but because it helps this message reach other people who are searching for this kind of understanding. There are so many voices out there promising instant results with no effort, and we need more spaces where people are willing to dive deeper, to explore what's actually true, rather than what simply sounds appealing. And if you're not already part of this community, consider subscribing. What we do here is explore these intersections between ancient wisdom and modern science, between spiritual understanding and practical application. Every video is designed to give you something real, something you can actually use to expand your consciousness and transform how you experience reality. This isn't about entertainment, it's about genuine evolution, and I'd love to have you along for that journey. Leave a comment saying, "This message was meant for me," if you feel like this video found you at exactly the right time. I read every single comment, and I'm genuinely curious about where you are in your own process of transformation. There's a video right here that takes what we've explored today even further, diving into specific techniques for maintaining these elevated states, even when external circumstances are challenging. Click and continue with me over there. I think you'll find it's the perfect next step from where we are right now. Thank you for being here, for staying present, and for choosing consciousness.